Great to be with you. I'm Ed Martin, president of the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. Please visit realmrsamerica.com to find more of these fact-checking videos. Please share and like this video and subscribe right down here to get the word out on what's happening with Real Mrs. America. It's still out there. It started months ago in Hollywood and broadcast on Hulu. $50 million from FX. Well, it's still bouncing around. And the very last thing I'll tell you on this video is why it's so important right now and will be for at least 4 or 5 more weeks. But let's get right to a check here. Everyone knows this famous debate between Fred and Phyllis Schlafly and Brenda and Mark Fasteau. It got a lot of attention. It was depicted at some length in the Mrs. America miniseries. And the fact is, it wasn't accurate. But the real Brenda Feigen, she's now gone back to her maiden name, I think it's Feigen, she weighed in on this very topic on a recent podcast. It's on law.com. Their own podcast is called Legal Speak. And we got to go clip by clip from this podcast to separate fact from fiction yet again. Let's listen to the first clip right here.
The mere fact that they chose to show our women's movement through the lens of the noxious Phyllis Schlafly made me crazy. I knew her, I debated her, I was confronting her throughout the 70s basically, and it was horrible with her.
Brenda Feigen isn't the only feminist who's angry at Phyllis Schlafly and that she got so much airtime in the Mrs. America miniseries. You know, Gloria Steinem, who was depicted in the miniseries, she's publicly complained and written about the fact that she doesn't like how Mrs. America supposedly made Phyllis Schlafly too successful for Gloria Steinem. That's not how she remembered losing the ERA fight. You know, even Eleanor Smeal, who played a big role back then, and she debated Phyllis Schlafly in the 1970s more than almost any other feminist. Our records seem to think she was the one who was head-to-head with Phyllis the most. And you know what? She was quoted as saying, "I'm super lucky I wasn't portrayed at all in this miniseries." I think she wanted to stay away from it because, again, she's complaining that Phyllis looked too smart and too strong and won too much. Well, you know, I haven't heard anyone of the people who were portrayed in the miniseries say that it was done well enough and factual enough. They're all complaining about Phyllis Schlafly. They come up with these canards about somebody else was behind the defeat of ERA, not the great Phyllis Schlafly. And you know what? They're not sticking to the facts. You know, the one character who I have heard talk about this and say that it was done really well was Alice. Oh, no, wait. They made Alice up. She was a fictional character, so she couldn't certainly tell the truth. And by the way, if Alice is being cited by feminists and proto-feminists or new pseudo-feminists as being the most important character, they made her up. The Hollywood writers admit they made it up. Let's go back to, and forget about Alice's take on accuracy from fiction land. Let's go back to the fake news, fake reporting, fake facts. Let's move on. Here's Brenda in a recent interview, that same interview. Here we go.
I feel like the personal part of it that they depicted was not really accurate, but it got the sense of what was going on in my life. It was very hard to watch that and have it be fictionalized and see what they did to it. But I was very happy when they got to the debate that you're talking about on the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder as the host. And Mark and I were answering back and telling Schlafly and her husband what really was going on with the law.
We've showed in fact check after fact check that the portrayal of these debates, that this debate is totally fictionalized. And if you click on any of the links in the notes below, you'll hear more about the debate and you'll hear the actual clips, not the Hollywood version. You know, Brenda was lying in the debate back then, and she's lying now. It's not just what Brenda is saying, it's not remembered correctly, it's not false memory. She says in this recent interview that she was recently able to watch a recording of the original debate. Well, she knows if she really watched the debate tape, that's not what happened. Let's hear what happens in the podcast when the podcast host actually presses Brenda for a direct answer about what happened in the debate.
Yeah, having watched this show, there's this moment where she cites a case for the proposition that in a divorce, the mother would not be entitled to maintain custody of the children. And the actress playing you in that scene kind of pounces on her, and it turns out that case does not exist. Is that pretty close to what you remember happening during that debate?
Well, I want to tell you, I'm not sure it was in that debate. It might have been in another debate, but it was definitely in a debate where in real life, where I actually caught her making up a case.
Well, first, Brenda Feigen says she watched a full recording of the debate. Now she says she's not sure what happened. She's not sure what actually happened? Make up your mind, Brenda. Did Phyllis lie back then? That's what you're claiming, except the tape shows she didn't. Or maybe you got it wrong. This is the classic liberal doublespeak. It's a classic liberal hit job. You say an outrageous lie, and then you deflect when you're confronted with the truth. In this case, in our archives, in the Phyllis Schlafly Center, in the heart of America in St. Louis, we have that debate tape, Brenda Feigen. We know what it says, and if you really watched it, you do too, and I think you do. You know, according to Phyllis Schlafly's journals, her personal journals from that time, which we have, again, in the archives, and you can look back, Phyllis debated Brenda at least 3 times total in the 1970s. And in those debates, this big lie that Brenda claims, it never happened there either. Despite all of this, there's one big thing that we can agree with Brenda in this recent podcast interview, and it's very important. Listen to this. This is awesome.
The deadline for ratification really was 1982, and as much as the people who have been lobbying for the Equal Rights Amendment wish it weren't so, in my opinion, it is so. That was the deadline. I don't know whether Congress has the power to, I guess I'd have to say, amend the second part of the Equal Rights Amendment where it has a 7-year provision in it. My belief is that it does not, and that therefore we cannot use that 35 states to consider getting the amendment passed right now. It would be hugely symbolically significant. So I wish we could start over again. With the red states staying possibly red, I don't know. I don't know what the math on that is. I wish I didn't have to say this, but I believe that Justice Ginsburg and I agree on this point. And I've heard her say that, and I feel that it is kind of a dead issue constitutionally right now. We'd have to start over. That's what I feel.
We can agree 100% with Brenda Feigen on this. ERA is dead. It's legally dead. It's culturally dead. It's dead, dead, dead. The only people pushing it are people that make money off of pushing feminist ideas, and then feminists who are misguided by the truth. In fact, the ERA of the 1970s is so dead, and we agree with Brenda and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and most other people that are smart. And when they admit the ERA is dead, when those folks admit it, you got to know it's really dead. You know, feminists are free to start this process all over. And I suspect the liberals who want to degrade our country and our Constitution will likely join it. But the fact is, it will never pass, because what Phyllis Schlafly was able to do was warn our nation about the entire truth, the danger it posed to our Constitution, to women, to our families, and to our way of life. You know, after all of this and all in all, you know, there's plenty of fiction and some facts in what Brenda says in her big interview. But we have to cut through it and make sure you know. Earlier today, I talked to a big Hollywood type, and he said he watched the Mrs. America, and he was so impressed by Phyllis Schlafly's strength. And then he went on to describe some of her conduct, and he said that seemed kind of different than he expected. And I said, that's because it's a lie. And he said, Hollywood likes to tell those lies so in the future they become the history that people remember. That's why we're fighting back. That's why we do these fact checks, and that's why we need you to like and share this video, subscribe down below, and whenever you're notified that there's a new fact check video, please watch it and pass it on to other people. Oh, I told you I'd tell you why this is all coming up again. Months after it came out, months after the $50 million FX series aired on Hulu. It's even months after it aired over in BBC. You want to know why? Next month, the Emmys are coming. And they're going to give Emmys, all these insiders, to themselves and others, and try to lift up at the Emmys with awards Mrs. America. But you know the real Mrs. America. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.